Hello, and welcome to a pivotal moment in the fight against cancer. Today, we're not just witnessing advancements in medicine, we're witnessing the dawn of a new era in personalized care. Precision medicine is not just a buzzword, it's a beacon of hope where tailored treatments speak directly to a person's genetic makeup or the distinct biology of a tumor, and ultimately the individual journey of each unique patient fighting cancer. In this journey today, during my presentation, we'll explore the extraordinary ways precision oncology medicine is rewriting the roles of cancer management and treatment. Every step we take brings us closer to a future where cancer is not just treated, but truly understood and managed for exceptional outcomes. I'm so glad you have joined today where I, Vicki Doctor, an oncology nurse at City of Hope working in precision medicine since 2015, can share with you about these transformative advancements called precision oncology medicine, where science meets compassion and where every patient story is at the center of our quest for health and healing. So I'd like to go over my outline today of topics I want to share with you to help you understand what precision oncology medicine is. And to begin with, you can't really talk about precision oncology medicine without explaining how cancer is a genetic disease, so I'll do that. And then I'll go over the history of cancer treatments going back to the late 1800s and following the path to where we are today. And then explain to you what precision oncology medicine is by talking about the precision oncology testing and the precision oncology treatment that we offer here for our patients at City of Hope. I like to give patient examples to show you the power of precision medicine in patients who have cancer. And then finally, I'll wrap it up by going over topics about what the future could hold, the near future and the long-term future for precision oncology medicine. So with that, we'll jump right in and talk about how cancer is a genetic disease. So cancer is a genetic disease in that our genes can be impacted by a variety of things leading to cancer. And in the a slide that I'm sharing, you can see the variety of elements that can lead to cancer. So heredity is one way. You can inherit the proclivity to develop a certain type of cancer. And there's a separate presentation on this topic by our genetic counselors that you can watch to learn more about that. Other causes of changes in our genes are from environmental exposure to things like smoking, chemicals, UV radiation, viruses. And then sometimes, and actually the most common way cancer can develop is just a random mutation when cells are dividing that leads to cancer. So most of the changes that happen in our body to our genes from these environmental exposures are not harmful on their own, but when you have an accumulation of those changes over many years, it can turn healthy cells into cancerous cells, leading to cancer. And so this slide just really goes over the mechanism that's happening in our body with the different genes that we have, that when they work right, they're actually made to prevent cancer. But when these genes are mutated by the elements that I described in the prior slide, people can develop cancer. So oncogenes are genes that we have in our body that are responsible for applying the accelerator. I'm using a car analogy to explain it, but it's really these genes are responsible for controlling cell growth by applying and letting go of an accelerator. So knowing when cell growth needs to stop and when it needs to start again is these genes' responsibility. And when they're mutated, the accelerator is applied all the time, leading to cancer. Tumor suppressor genes are responsible for the brakes and stopping the cell growth when it is out of control. But when tumor suppressor genes are mutated, the brake doesn't work, and so cells rapidly divide uncontrollably, leading to cancer. And then finally, we have these really unique and I think cool genes in our bodies that are DNA repair genes that are responsible for going out into the body and making repairs in certain pathways that are damaged that could lead to cancer. But when these DNA repair genes are mutated, then they cannot do the repairs that they are designed to do, and cancer can develop. So now that you've learned a little bit about how cancer is a genetic disease, I want to go over the history of cancer treatment. I think it's important to understand where things started and how far we've come in telling the story about precision medicine. So in 1884, that was when we saw the very first specialized cancer hospital open in New York City that would later become the Memorial Sloan Kettering. That's a very famous hospital in New York City. And in 1882, between the years of 1882 and 1889, we saw surgery and radiation develop as a weapon against cancer. So the first radical mastectomy to treat breast cancer was completed in those years, as well as using radiation therapy or X-ray therapy to actually cure patients with basal cell carcinoma of the skin and squamous cell carcinoma of the skin. In 1941, we saw the emergence of hormonal therapy when scientists actually discovered that removing testicles to lower testosterone production or administering estrogens caused prostate tumors to regress. This is known as hormonal manipulation, also hormonal therapy, and it continues to be a common treatment for prostate cancer. In 1949, we saw the very first chemotherapy approved. It was a nitrogen mustard, and this drug was developed based on what they learned watching soldiers in World War I who were exposed to nitrogen mustard and the effect that it had on modifying DNA. So they repurposed it into a chemotherapy, and that was used for some time beginning in the late 40s. Fast forward 40 years to the very first IV-directed therapy known as Herceptin that was approved by the FDA. This targets HER2, which is a biomarker that's expressed in tumors of patients with a variety of cancers, but at that time it was only approved and firstly approved for patients that had breast cancer. This was quickly followed by the first oral targeted therapy approval for the drug named Gleevec to treat patients with chronic myelogenic leukemia who had BCR-ABL fusion genes. And this was a game changer for these patients. It really turned that cancer into a chronic illness that patients are managing with the drug Gleevec. In 2003, the Human Genome Project was done, that was completed, where they were able to identify the 20 to 25,000 genes that make up the human body. And this really accelerated all of the future immunotherapies and targeted therapies and precision medicine that followed soon after that. Between 2011 and 2014, we saw the first immunotherapies approved to treat cancer. These are drugs that are harnessing the body's immune system to help fight cancer. And then in 2017, we saw the first FDA approval for a large panel genomic test, and we're going to talk about what that means here in a little bit. But these are tests that are done on a tumor to predict what targeted therapy could be used to fight the mutation that is driving the cancer's growth. So we've come a long way, and as a result, cancer mortality rates have dramatically dropped since 1991. And if you think back to that first IV targeted therapy, Herceptin, being approved in 1998, this kind of coincides with all of the activity that has happened since then. And mortality rates have declined by 33% since 1991. There's a variety of reasons they attribute this decline in mortality rates. Less people are smoking, there's much more early detection, and most importantly, greatly improved treatments through precision medicine. So this has definitely impacted patients are living longer, patients are surviving cancer because of precision medicine and targeted therapies. So what is precision oncology medicine? I've dropped a few terms here and there in the slides leading up to this, but specifically precision oncology medicine is molecular testing that is done to identify the genetic abnormality that's causing the cancer's growth. And then the results of these tests are used to guide the management and the treatment of the patient's cancer. And on the slide there, the visual that I'm sharing with you, each group of those patients, when you think of precision medicine and how it works, they could all have the same diagnosis, but because each patient may have a unique genetic abnormality that's causing that cancer's growth. Each group of patients that has that abnormality should be treated with a specific targeted therapy. And that's really what precision oncology medicine is. So before I go into talking about the testing and the treatment, I want to make sure that I clarify the difference between genomic tumor mutations that are acquired and genetic germline mutations that are inherited. So, genomic tumor mutations are the DNA mutations acquired from a lifetime of exposure, carcinogen exposure, or the random cell replication that we talked about in the earlier slide. The specimens that are used for this type of testing are tumor tissue, and if tumor tissue isn't available, they can actually do a blood biopsy and identify and see fragments of tumor DNA that's floating in the blood to come up with the same conclusions that they can, similar conclusions that they can with a tissue test. This test is used to identify the mutations, as I was saying before, that's driving that cancer's growth. The results are used for treatment decisions. So how can they treat, what drug will target that mutation that is causing the cancer to grow? Also, this test can sometimes help identify possible germline or genetic mutations and lead to a referral to a genetic counseling specialist that we have working at City of Hope. And that takes me to the other topic that I want to compared to what I just explained to you is the genetic germline mutations that are inherited. As I was saying before, we have a video presentation by a couple of our genetic counselors where they talk specifically about this topic. But these are the DNA mutations that can be inherited from our parents. And the test that's done for this is using blood, saliva, or skin. So you're looking at those mutations that are in every cell of the body and the ones that can actually increase the cancer risk, maybe for the cancer that the patient has, but possibly for other cancers as well. So the results of these tests can lead to enhanced screening, preventative measures for the patient if they test positive, and even the family members if that patient tests positive and the family members are willing to come in and be tested. Sometimes the results of this test can be used for treatment decisions for patients with cancer, but not as frequently as the genomic testing that's done on a patient's tumor tissue or sometimes blood if the tumor tissue is not available. So I want to dive in a little bit about precision oncology testing and what that means. So what can genomic molecular testing tell us? It can tell us what mutations or variants are found in the tumor that's driving the cancer's growth. It can help us understand what type of cancer a patient has if they have an unknown primary. And this happens not frequently, but sometimes they're not able to tell what type of cancer a patient has, and a molecular test can tell that. It can also predict who would benefit from chemotherapy and who can forgo chemotherapy in certain tumor types. Not for everyone, but that test is available. And in the newer space of molecular testing, it can tell us who in certain cancer types is responding to treatment and who isn't. What are the benefits of genomic molecular tests? So the benefit primarily is what drug is most likely to work based on those mutations. It's a more precise treatment methodology than chemotherapy was for patients. A more precise diagnosis of the type of tumor a patient has, as I was saying, if they have a tumor of unknown primary, meaning they don't know where the cancer started, this test can help guide treatment decisions. It can help tell which drugs are not likely to work, so treatments can be avoided that would be harmful to the patient or that where they would gain no benefit. And then finally, really importantly, at City of Hope, these tests can actually help match patients to innovative treatment options through clinical trials that are available based on the testing that's identifying the biomarker. So who's eligible for genomic molecular tests that can predict which targeted therapy to use? There's a set of criteria that Medicare uses and that we have internally. Patients diagnosed with a solid tumor cancer are most appropriate for these tests. Sometimes there are other types of tests that are done on patients that have blood cancers, but solid tumor cancer is the primary type of patient that has these tests done. Patients should have either recurrent, relapsed, refractory, metastatic, or advanced stage 3 or stage 4 cancer. Only one of those is required. Patients never been tested or the cancer has actually progressed while they were on a treatment, and a tumor can change and can develop new biomarkers that can be targeted, so a physician may order another test if you've already had one done. And then patient and doctor have decided to seek another further cancer treatment. So that's an important distinction. This is a decision and a conversation that happens between a patient and a doctor. And another important point is that there's many other smaller genomic molecular tests that can be done that fit a criteria outside of what I've just shared here that could be appropriate for your specific scenario. And your doctor is really the best person to discuss these options with. So precision oncology treatment. So I've went over the history of cancer treatment and explained to you how the last a little bit over 20 years, we really have seen targeted therapy and immunotherapies come into the toolbox that an oncologist has for how they can treat patients. And they specifically kill, they're very selective in how they kill cells. The treatment is based on that mutation that they found and that molecular testing that they've done that's driving the cancer's growth. And it's less harm to normal cells, fewer side effects, improved effectiveness, and improved quality of life. And prior to targeted therapy and immunotherapy, if you remember the history slide that I shared with you talking about surgery, radiation, chemotherapy, these are all still tools that medical oncologists have in their toolbox to treat patients and are still used. But chemotherapy comes with some side effects. The way that it works is it kills all rapidly dividing cells, and the treatment is based on the cancer type, meaning where it's at in the body and the stage, and not that mutation that's driving the cancer. And because cancer works by killing all rapidly dividing cells, that can lead to very severe side effects for some patients, substantial toxicity, that can lead to early termination of treatment or even missing doses that can never be good for outcomes for patients when that happens. And this just shows you, as I was saying before, we still use chemotherapy for patients. However, over the last 20 years and the dates listed there between January 2000 and October 2022, there was 573 agents approved by the FDA for a variety of cancers, and only 9% of those were for chemotherapy. The remaining are 91% for targeted therapy drugs used for patients. So what are the benefits of precision oncology treatments? So prior to personalized medicine, that group of patients, they all had the same diagnosis. Maybe they had lung cancer, stage 3. They all got the same treatment. It didn't matter what the mutation was that was driving the cancer's growth. And some people benefited, some didn't, and many had adverse side effects and had to quit treatment early. With personalized medicine, that those patients, no matter where the tumor is, get the biomarker molecular testing done that help guides treatment choices based on that rather than location of the tumor in the stage. And then each patient can potentially benefit from the individualized treatment that's identified and recommended based on the molecular testing. So now I want to give you a couple patient examples of how precision oncology medicine have helped patients here at City of Hope. This is a female diagnosed with advanced stage 4 non-small cell lung cancer over 6 years ago at a very young age in her mid-20s. Molecular testing showed that she had a mutation that could be targeted with a new drug that had just been approved for lung cancer at the time. She was able to begin the treatment over 6 years ago, remains on the same oral targeted therapy drug to this day. This is a very different story for this lung cancer patient. Had she been diagnosed 10 years prior, or maybe even gone to a different facility for treatment when she was diagnosed, originally lung cancer patients, advanced stage, really just had chemotherapy as an option for treatment. But she's been able to start this targeted therapy and do well on it. An important point, two important points about this story is at the time that this patient was diagnosed between 2012 and 2018, the 5-year survival rate for those patients with advanced non-small cell lung cancer was only 9%. So she's doing quite well in beating that statistic thanks to targeted therapy and molecular testing. And then also a study came out looking at 14,000 patients who were seen between the years of 2012 and 2017 at a large center, not ours, and identified only 35.5% of those patients were actually even tested for the mutation that we found when we did molecular testing on her, leading to the treatment that she's been on for over 6 years now. So just a really good story. And lung cancer patients, especially advanced lung cancer patients, are really the poster children for precision medicine. Currently, a lot of new treatments and options have been opened up for them based on the science of precision medicine. And now I want to share a story of a patient who benefited from precision medicine through a clinical trial and is still benefiting. A 70-year-old man diagnosed with thyroid cancer in 2009, received standard treatments, of which there are many for that diagnosis, but he did have recurrence and disease spread in 2013 and was told at the center he was at there was nothing more that could be done, so he came to us for a second opinion. We did molecular testing, found that he had 2 mutations that were driving the cancer's growth. However, he did have another standard of care available that was given to him, and he did progress and was able to start these 2 targeted therapies that are approved for currently, even still to this day, melanoma, and he's able to continue it since 2017 and doing well. So these are great stories that just explain to you how real world stories of patients that have benefited from precision medicine. So what does the future hold in precision oncology medicine? Well, there's novel approaches to drug development that are occurring right now, research on bifunctional drugs. Imagine bifunctional drugs as special tools that have 2 jobs in fighting cancer. They attack the cancer cells directly, but they're also designed to boost the immune system at the same time. So it gives a big boost to our body's own defense system, and it's like calling in reinforcements to help with the battle when you're able to attack cancer cells in 2 ways. So that's one way that current research going on and in the future will be available to patients. Multi-omics treatment, if you think about the term that I've used a couple times, genomics. So multi-omics therapy is really putting together puzzle pieces to understand cancer better. Instead of just looking at the one type of information about cancer cells, maybe as I was saying earlier, the mutation that's causing the growth, maybe we can look at other things like how the genes are making proteins, how they use energy, and how they behave overall, and how we can target them based on that information. Another really important part of the precision oncology medicine story is recent and even more, they go back to 2017, and there was just another one last month, and they're called pan-tumor targeted therapy approvals. And what this means is the FDA approves the drug not based on where the cancer is in the body. They're actually approving the drug based on the biomarker or the mutation that the drug targets. So for instance, in 2017, the first pan-tumor targeted therapy approval was for Keytruda in all patients, no matter what type of tumor they had. If they had a certain biomarker, the FDA approved that drug, and for insurance companies to cover it. So there have been several since then, and I'm sure there'll be more to come. Another really important part of the precision medicine story is how we currently in research, and in the future even more so using AI, be able to integrate clinical and molecular data to reveal therapy responses and resistance drivers. So we'll be able to marry the clinical story of patients who have been tested and treated and understand those that responded and those that resisted, and what was their maybe the common biomarker or common molecular makeup of that tumor that led to that outcome, and so we can help patients in the future with that knowledge. Pharmacogenomics is another story of precision oncology medicine, where tests can actually look at variants that you've inherited from your parents that can predict how you will metabolize a drug. Some patients, depending on the variant they have, they may be slow metabolizers, they may be fast metabolizers. And if you think about the harmful effects that can happen if you're a slow metabolizer, the drug's going to build up in your body, and you could really have some severe side effects. Where contrary to that, if you're a fast metabolizer, you may not get the benefit from the drug that it was designed to give you. So pharmacogenomic testing can actually help clinicians guide them on decisions about different drugs for patients based on this information. So this is a really exciting space in precision medicine, not just oncology, but other spaces as well. Early cancer detection tests is a hot topic. You may have heard of a recent announcement about the test Grail that is available. Insurance companies, I don't think are paying for them yet, but it's a way to do a blood test and find out if you potentially have early signs of cancer in your blood and possibly go through more testing to actually confirm that and treat it and cure any cancer early on. And these are really important tests when you think about the types of cancer that we have now where there's no screening available, like for instance, pancreatic test, pancreatic cancer, ovarian cancer, where oftentimes these cancers are found quite late when cures are not possible. And so these early cancer detection tests are really promising for saving many lives when they're able to find the cancer so soon. And then finally, artificial intelligence and machine learning. You can't really hear anyone talk about anything lately without hearing these words, but it's really important and will transform and is already transforming cancer care, aiding in early detection, treatment planning, drug development. Today, researchers can analyze vast amounts of data to personalize treatment strategies, and in the future, they'll revolutionize diagnostics, predict treatment responses, and offer more precise therapies, ushering in a new era of tailored precision cancer care. Precision medicine offers a personalized approach to cancer treatment, tailoring therapies based on a patient's unique genetic makeup. Currently, it's revolutionizing cancer care by improving treatment effectiveness and reducing side effects. Looking ahead, the future of precision medicine holds even more promise with advancements in technology, enhancing early detection, targeted therapies, and outcomes for cancer patients. Embracing this approach, as we do at City of Hope, means embracing a future where every patient's journey with cancer is as individualized and effective as possible. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that you learned something. And if you have a question or something you'd like to share with me, please reach out to your cancer fighter representative at your respective hospital and they can put you in touch with me.